Ah, Christmas time, when the nip in the air signals the coming of the season of giving. Hopefully COVID won't be the only thing we give to each other this year, but it's not exactly the first time that we've had problems this time of year. In fact, the late 60s saw more than its fair share of political and cultural upheaval. At the center of that was the most outspoken of the four Beatles, and even before he'd officially left the group, John Lennon had begun to use that most awesome of soapboxes to make his voice heard. This is the story of a Christmas song that was largely forgotten for decades before its re-emergence as a top 10 standard. The story of Happy Xmas, War is Over, next on this Christmas special of If Guitars Could Speak. Hello friends and happy holidays from your neighborhood guitar historian. Today we have a very special Christmas edition of If Guitars Could Speak as we also celebrate the 50th anniversary of the release of this seminal John Lennon Christmas standard, Happy Xmas, War is Over. That's right, this song was released 50 years ago on December 1st, 1971 here in the United States, but it wouldn't be released until the following November of 1972 in the UK. Now played several times daily and covered multiple times, the track somewhat fell into obscurity, although it would re-emerge from time to time, especially in the December following Lennon's murder by Mark David Chapman in 1980. But remember, if you like rock history content like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel for tons of classic rock and blues history, and be sure to drop a like on this video to let the YouTube algorithm know that you think other people would like to see it. John Lennon and his penchant for political controversy is no secret to rock historians. Arguably the first time Lennon waded into hot water with his mouth was in 1965 after he'd received his MBE, or Member of the British Empire Medal, from the Queen. When he heard that some military recipients were returning their medals in protest to the pop group receiving them as well, Lennon said, quote, "They got them for killing people. We got ours for entertaining. I'd say we deserve ours more." As Lennon got older and the Beatles wiser and more prone to take risks, Lennon's political beliefs exploded out of millions of speakers as the double A-side to Hey Jude, the song Revolution. It was a tongue-in-cheek protest song, both understanding of the frustration, but at the same time admonishing some of the more violent fringe elements of both sides. The song would announce the entry of Lennon onto the world stage as a full-fledged political ideologist, and peace activists around the world took notice. The reaction of some of the new left, however, were less happy about John's call for pacifism. But he kept at it, and his relationship with Yoko Ono began to blossom in 1969, and it only cemented his beliefs that a non-violent approach was the only correct way to change the world. Lennon would say, quote, "When it gets down to having to use violence, then you are playing the system's game. The establishment will irritate you, pull your beard, flick your face to make you fight, because once they've got you violent, they know how to handle you. The only thing they don't know how to handle is nonviolence and humor." With his new clarity of purpose, Lennon decided to turn his March 1969 wedding to Ono into a full-fledged stand for peace by holding their first of the famous bed-ins for peace at the Amsterdam Hilton between 25 and 31 March. A few days later, they held a press conference in Vienna, Austria, where Lennon announced his belief in bagism, his made-up satire of a belief system, which centered around humans living in bags, eliminating the need to judge each other based on our appearance. Lennon and Ono also sent acorns to 50 world leaders, hoping they would plant them as symbols of solidarity and peace. If some of this sounds familiar, it was made timeless in a song by Lennon on his 1969 Beatles single, The Ballad of John and Yoko. Finally, as 1969 turned into December, Lennon and Ono decided to close the year out with a Christmas message. The couple bought billboard space in 12 major cities around the world, which were massive and stark white with giant black lettering that read, quote, "War is over," and then in smaller letters beneath, quote, "If you want it." Finally signed with, quote, "Happy Christmas from John and Yoko." The delivery of the message was overtly Yoko's idea, whose history and avant-garde art had the side effect of definitely getting noticed. She had the idea of combining political propaganda techniques with a message that was positive. The massive, stark black font was impossible to ignore. But most passers-by would end up ignoring the message from the Lennon-Onos, and it would fade into memory for a couple years. Fast forward to Lennon's masterpiece 1971 album and its title track, Imagine, which would go on to solidify John's message of peace and one of world equality. In thinking about his lack of success in getting his message across previously, Lennon would say of Imagine's breakthrough, quote, "Now I understand what you have to do. Put your political message across with a little honey." As the Christmas season approached in 1971, Lennon started to think about the connection that the Beatles had had with the festive season, recording Christmas messages on paper discs for their fan club every year, with messages an exclusive daring do that only fan club members received. At the same time becoming nostalgic and pragmatic, he conceived a way of delivering his war is over message, which, let's be real, came across like a sledgehammer, while also adding a little bit of that aforementioned honey by coupling it again with Christmas. Lennon recorded a demo of the half-formed waltz-timed song, slowly putting it together in the next few weeks as the process of recording went on. Lennon would call on legendary Wall of Sound producer Phil Spector once again, who had become the former Beatles, Lennon and Harrison's favorite board jockey. The song's personnel were a litany of former Plastic Ono band and stalwarts of both John and George's solo work, including drummer Jim Keltner, pianist Nicky Hopkins, and even featured John's future love interest May Pang on backing vocals, with whom he would begin a love affair with in 1973. The song elicits the Christmas spirit through its use of the ubiquitous sleigh bells and other percussion instruments that were brought in by the vast experience of Spector, who'd produced many prior Christmas recordings over the years for multiple artists in the 1960s. Finishing off the festive spirit would be the Harlem Community Choir, with children ranging in age from 4 to 12 and singing along with Yoko for the counter melody and chorus. Photographer Ian McMillan would capture one of the single cover photographs, the same photographer who shot the iconic cover to the Beatles album Abbey Road. The song would be released on December 1st in the US on a special transparent green vinyl. But despite these selling out quickly, the single would not move the needle very much in the States that holiday season. Poor promotion and a late release date would be blamed for its performance, which saw the song only making number 36 on the US cash box charts. In the UK, the song would not be released for nearly a year after a dispute on publishing between Northern Songs, the Beatles' old publishing company, and Lennon and Apple. When it was finally released in November of 1972, the single saw much better success in John's home country, reaching number 4 in the charts and ruling the Christmas airwaves that year. The song has been known to re-enter various charts around the holiday seasons, the most notable of which came after Lennon was gunned down in December of 1980. The song would reach number 2 in the charts at that time, right behind Imagine, which had also been reissued in his memory as well. The message behind Happy Xmas reads like a self-help book, asking the listener to think about what they had accomplished in the previous year and also planned to accomplish the next year. This, coupled with the war is over message, is meant to elicit a response of, "Let's change the world," from Lennon's fans. These days we can look back on just how unsuccessful John and Yoko were at getting people to actually follow their message. It would be nice to call an end to war, even if it was just for one day, and to John, the word war had a double meaning. It also meant the personal war that we humans fight against our basic instincts every day. John fought constantly against his basest nature and predilection toward violent behavior. He would say, quote, "That is why I am always on about peace, you see. It is the most violent people who go for love and peace. Everything's the opposite. But I sincerely believe in love and peace. I'm a violent man who has learned not to be violent and regrets his violence. I will have to be a lot older before I can face in public how I treated women as a youngster." It seems that today we've totally ignored John's calls for peace and self-reflection. We fight little personal wars almost daily with each other over political nonsense and beliefs, but in the end, John was right. War could be over if we wanted it. So, in that spirit, whether you agree with John's message of peace and equality or not, maybe spend a little bit of time this Christmas season reflecting on how we can open our minds to different ways of thinking. Maybe we can open our hearts to our enemies and invite them in for a hot chocolate and some Christmas carols. Or maybe we really don't want it. Wherever you fall on the argument, you can't fault John for trying. So in his memory, I wish you and yours the most peaceful and safe of holiday seasons. And with that, thanks again for watching this holiday episode of If Guitars Could Speak, and thank you for making this past year so much fun and so amazingly gratifying with your kind comments and approval of my work. Here's to the holiday season, whichever one you celebrated or will celebrate, and to a great 2022. We will see you next time on the Guitar Historian channel.